First of all, let's speak to former BBC correspondent Michael Cole. Good morning, Michael. Thank you for joining us. You worked at the BBC for many years. What are the key questions now that you think should be asked of the BBC?
Good morning, Beverly. Good morning, Andrew. Well, the BBC, as we all know, is very bureaucratic. It's unwieldy. It usually does the right thing eventually, which is what Winston Churchill said of America. And it has at last done the right thing in calling in the Metropolitan Police, which it should have done as soon as it became aware of these very grave charges, because if proven, they would carry sentences ranging from 10 to 14 years under the 1978 Protection of Children Act and other changes to the criminal code. So I'm afraid that an internal investigation by the BBC, and I've seen some of them pan out, usually unsatisfactorily, because they're too little and too late, won't do in this case. It has to be handed over to the police because these are grave errors if they have been committed. Indeed, they are felonies. And it will not do for Tim Davie to issue concerned statements as he has done so far. This has to be taken by the scruff of the neck. It has to be worked out. And bringing in the police is the first sensible thing the BBC has done.
Tim Davie, he's the Director General, Michael, and the BBC have suspended this individual. Is the reason they've suspended this individual now because it's hit the press? Because the complaint was made in the middle of May by the individual's mother.
Indeed, that's right. That should have set the alarm bells ringing. Quite clearly it didn't. The BBC says that then the complaint altered materially last Thursday, and that's when Tim Davie should have been informed. Well, he should have been informed at the outset, because the BBC has been beset by recent scandals involving their chairman and so on. We all know about them. And of course, in the not that distant past, we've had the terrible scandals of Rolf Harris and even worse, Jimmy Savile. So it hasn't got a great track record of how to deal with these sort of things, which then, rather like a small cloud on the horizon, can turn into a thunderstorm if they're not dealt with in the right way from the outset. But as I say, they're not light on their feet on these occasions, and then it becomes very bureaucratic, and then it becomes very much more defensive. There's no reason why, from the outset, they should not, having informed the person who is accused of doing these things, and we must stress, of course, that an allegation is not proof, having informed him that this allegation had been made by a concerned mother, then at that stage, the sensible thing, having spoken to their own lawyers, would have been to inform the Metropolitan Police. Let them take it from there. Then the BBC's hands are clean to some extent.
And should they not have immediately taken this person off air?
Yeah, well, it's a judgment call. We haven't heard all the circumstances, and as I've said, an allegation is not proof. The detail here will be crucial. We need to know what the allegation was, but I think it was absolutely right that they did not name him and has not named him, and they shouldn't do that because it would hopelessly and endlessly prejudice any further legal action, should there be legal action taken in due course. So it's difficult, but I think a firm hand was needed from the outset, somebody who knew what they was doing. It's not as if they haven't had experience of this. They've been around the track several days, and it also sometimes seems as a week cannot go past without there's another BBC scandal. And don't forget, we all pay through that through a disguised poll tax called the licence fee.
Do they not have a responsibility, Michael, to the other presenters and staff, though, who are trying desperately, who have been over the weekend, to try and clear their names and distance themselves from any allegations?
I can understand that. Yeah, Beverly, I can understand that entirely. The shadow falls across everybody, and it's most unfair. And some of them, wisely or not, have taken the steps to say, hey, it's not me. I understand that, but of course the other people who resent this are the ordinary members of staff who aren't paid these stratospheric salaries, and they look at this happening at the higher level, and they see people who they probably resent because they get so much more money for doing essentially the same job that they could do quite easily if they were not on the staff, and they don't like it either. So a firm hand is needed here. Sometimes you feel this great ship of state sailing down Portland Place, there's nobody at the tiller.